What's up, guys? 48 laws of power. Law number 19. Know who you're dealing with. Do not offend the wrong person. There are many different kinds of people in the world, and you can never assume that anyone will react to your strategies in the same way. Deceive or outmaneuver someone, they will spend the rest of their lives seeking revenge. Oh, that ship sailed. There's been a plan for almost 200 years to exact revenge on you. It's underway right now. But we're going to find out why and what you can do about it. All right, so we're going to take it back and start at the late 1700s, right? Britain is known as the global leader, the big dog. It's said that the sun never sets on their empire, meaning they conquered most of the world. Through the East Indian Company, which is a British company that's basically based in India, which they've conquered, they're doing trade with China, right? China has tea, silk, porcelain, stuff that British people love. So in order to do trade with China, there's a couple stipulations. British people aren't allowed to learn Chinese. They can only trade with a couple of selected Chinese merchants. And most importantly, all goods must be paid for with silver, right? This is very important. We're going to come back to this. Silver and gold throughout history are the only real money. Everything else is currency. That's going to be another video. I'm not going to get into that now. So this isn't very favorable to England. Obviously, they're the number one big dogs for a reason. So what they decide to do is they say, okay, we're losing all of our silver to China, and they're being a little stingy with us. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to India that we own, and we're going to import from India to China opium, right? Opium is used for a lot of drugs, heroin, right? It's grown in poppy fields in India and the Middle East, right? So, by way of Britain, who colonized India, now China is paying for this opium with silver. So they're getting all their silver back and defeating the problem, right? But this becomes a problem for the Chinese population. They start getting addicted to it. So 1799, Chinese banned opium. Britain still being the big dog of the world, could care less about a ban. Now they're smuggling opium into China. Okay? Boom. So this pisses off China, and they start to seize shipments, including opium and other goods, and destroy it. So this leads to 1839 to 1842, the first Opium War, which isn't much of a war because nobody can really keep up with Britain militarily, especially if they have access to the ocean. They have the number one navy, and being based from India, resupplying and all that is not a problem. Britain pretty much smacks China, and through this, now treaties are being signed, which makes European travel and trade in China more relaxed. Now fast forward, 1856, China seizes a British ship, right, that they accuse of being pirates. But Britain says, They had a British flag on it. It's based out of Hong Kong, which we occupy. We're not going for it. You know what? Second Opium War. Okay? Now, during the first Opium War, it was more so about the opium. This one is more so about completely opening up China to Europe and being able to take advantage of them economically. Okay? So, obviously, again, Britain's still the big dog, and they dominate again. Second Opium War. But this time, you have Russia, England, US, and France basically coming to the negotiation table, all getting a piece of China. So now basically it's 4-1. And let's not be mistaken. Ever since before US got their independence, they always been together at the hip, right? So basically, at this time, US is England's little brother. Now I would say England's our little brother, but it's two sides of the same coin. So basically, all four of these countries have the upper hand on China, economically, militarily, right? And this lasts for about 100 years, which is why it's referred to as the century of humiliation.
Boo!
If that's spelled correctly, I'm not sure. And this lasts to about the 1940s, I'll say, right? And the only reason they were able to clean up and get their population off of opium and turn it around, Mao Zedong came in, implemented the Communist Party, killed the most people of anybody ever, including more than Hitler, more than Stalin, and they turned it around. Now they're fixing things, right? Okay, let's go over here. Fast forward to modern time. The US has a drug war. Where the Mexican cartels can basically ship anything they want through the Mexico border. Okay, boom. Since 1940, China's been rebuilding and has become one of the world's global leaders. So I would say the top three is US, Russia, and China, right? But besides England and US, ain't nobody friends. So China starts selling fentanyl, right? An ingredient in fentanyl is opium to Mexico, aka cartels. And the cartels are smuggling it into the US. So now you have a fentanyl crisis, right? Okay, let's pause there. Let's see if you can see this. BRICS. And what does that stand for? BRICS. BRICS. Britain, Russia, India, China, South Africa, right? And I'll even circle this one too. Now I told you, top 3 powers are who? US, Russia, China. BRICS is an affiliation between these 5 countries, okay? But they have over 40 other countries interested in joining. So they say BRICS is for economic development between these countries and whichever other ones join, right? But the most important factor of the BRICS alliance is that oil, right? Oil is very important to the US and the US economy. Why? Because all oil sold in the world has to be sold in US dollars currently, right? The BRICS suggestion is, you know what? We're not going to use US dollar in our trade of oil. We want not silver, but gold, hand in hand. We want gold if we buy and sell oil, right? Now, what this will do is, if that was to happen, tank the US dollar. One of the things that's propping up the US dollar is the fact that you can't buy oil without it. So let's look at the big picture, right? We have a drug war going on, partially fueled by China, and they're also involved in an alliance that's economically can sink the US dollar. Another important factor is, while at the same time they're selling the cartels fentanyl and we have a fentanyl crisis, China does not have a fentanyl crisis. Why? Well, one reason, because they execute drug dealers. All right, now you might say, oh, well, maybe it's some certain companies or gangs of China that are selling it, not necessarily the Chinese government. That would be true, except for CCP. Here, let me write it out for you. CCP. What does that stand for? Chinese Communist Party. Doesn't nobody do nothing in China without the government's permission. They own every single company that's big enough in China, right? Another factor, the US does business in China. NBA, a lot of different companies, US companies do business in China. A stipulation of this business is what? US company is not allowed to take any money out of China. US is not allowed to take any money out of China. So if you do $1 billion a year in China, you have to keep it over there to stimulate their economy. You're not allowed to bring the money back. And make no mistake, you might not be affected by the fentanyl crisis and don't have any business in China, so you don't care. But if the dollar collapses, trust me, you're gonna feel it. All right, so let's look at this big picture. Not allowed to bring any money back to stimulate the US, has to stay in China. Trying to devalue and destabilize the US economy, and funding a drug epidemic into the US. So don't tell me they ain't hold a grudge. Okay. Now, all right, now that's just 3 ways they're co-opting the US. Obviously, there's other things like buying politicians, propaganda campaigns, infiltrating different companies. But that's going to be a whole nother video. We're going to do a part 2 on this. But these are the 3 ways right now that the Chinese government is co-opting the US, right? Revenge. Because it's cool to be in shape, get women, get money. You know, we preach all that. But we also can't be ignorant. We need to know what's going on in the world. So, all right, that's the video for today. But we are going to do a part 2, including other ways that they're co-opting the US and what to do about it. It's making me thirsty thinking about this. That's the video for today.